Oh boy. Video games have a really unique relationship with storytelling, in that thanks to the interactivity of the medium, a lot of games have come up with really interesting and unique ways of telling stories. And I say that because most of the time FPS games have not been among them. So when I heard that Titanfall 2 rises above the rest to not just be the best FPS story of all time, but one of the best video game stories of all time, that put some pretty high expectations on me. And so the question you're probably asking is, were those expectations met? Well, okay, let's step back a little. Let's get this out of the way first. Titanfall 2 is a really good game. It's fun, and it obviously did not deserve the treatment it got from EA, those pieces of crap. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, basically Electronic Arts, the publisher behind the game, intentionally sabotaged its monetary performance by refusing to market it, so that after the game's release they could acquire Respawn. They were successful. Respawn is still Respawn, and Apex Legends can be fun at times, but it was absolutely not worth the death of one of the most respected shooters of all time, and I can see why it's so respected. Starting with the things I liked about Titanfall 2, obviously the gameplay is king. Not only is the shooting incredibly satisfying with a weapon sandbox that is both simultaneously balanced but also dripping with variety, but it also has a grappling hook. The movement, of course, is what really sells it. The slide is an incredibly useful tool to get around tight spots. The wall run and double jump allow you to do all kinds of awesome parkour to get a good vantage point. The grappling hook very neatly transitions between its own animation and your next, making it an integral piece of the combat puzzle. Movement speed is fast, but not too fast as to be disorienting, like in Call of Duty. And oh, did I mention this game has a grappling hook? I am of the opinion that every game with a grappling hook is very good. Maybe it's correlation rather than causation, but there's no way Halo Infinite, Ghost of Tsushima, Sekiro, and This Is Quality isn't somehow connected to the fact that they all have some form of grappling hook. I also think that Titanfall 2 is the best multiplayer of any shooter ever. I mean, when it comes to all the features people like to want in an arena multiplayer shooter, they do seem to be here. Lots of different variable modes? Check. A vast sandbox with many different weapons and character abilities that are all useful in some way? Check. Excellent and unique map design? Check. Lots of customization that doesn't require you to take out a mortgage? Check. That incredibly rare feature nowadays where you can sit through working servers for games? Oh, what? It's called a server browser? Oh, well, that's in the game too. So just remember that 2 minutes from now, when your nostrils flare after I complain about the campaign, I'm saying it right here and now. Titanfall 2's player is virtually perfect. 10 out of 10, please go play it. It's amazing. Now, on to the single player campaign, and this is where my opinions go from positive to more... Okay, it's not that bad. There is a lot to like. Core gameplay obviously remains king, though I did find it disappointing how we never got to use the grappling hook in any of the campaign. It would have been so fun to just grapple through half the levels, but oh well! The gameplay's still fun, and the level design actually matches the style of play, ODST! I do have two minor complaints about the game part of the campaign. The first is difficulty, namely. Maybe I've put too much time into Elden Ring. Maidenless. But when you have a mode called hard mode, the expectation is that it's a little bit challenging, and I never felt any kind of challenge playing this game. The other issue would be the lack of enemy variety in the non-Titan sections. There are 4 enemies, 2 of which are annoying and have too much health. But these two issues never actually impacted my enjoyment. They just made the experience slightly more monotonous. No, if we want to go into the actual issues I have with Titanfall 2's campaign, we need to go into the story, or what I like to call the most overhyped story in gaming ever! That isn't to say the story is bad. The word I would use to describe it is sporadically interesting. The best thing about it is, of course, BT. He's the most interesting character in the game by far. I mean, how could you not love him? He's a better version of Baymax from Big Hero 6. He's stubbornly loyal and has a vague but interesting past and motivations. He's great, and I was sad when he died, even if his death was arbitrarily prolonged. Whoops, I got ahead of myself! I think the second most interesting aspect of the story would be the little mechanic in which you can select different banter options during gameplay. It doesn't have the same long-term impact on, character relationships, morality, or the plot like an RPG, but it didn't need to. It's just there to ensure that you're an active participant in a relationship with BT, which is just as well, because Cooper isn't exactly the greatest protagonist. He's just a Call of Duty protagonist with a really boring voice and boring personality and boring character model and boring everything. The relationship with BT worked because of that mechanic, not because of Cooper, because BT has a relationship with the player. It's a really clever idea to get the player more invested, but Cooper doesn't really play a role in that. In fact, I feel the same way about all the other characters. They're all either boring or insufferable. The villains fall on the insufferable side with their quippy hero shooter dialogue. Look, I like Apex Legends, but the characters are easily the worst part of that game. Now you might say, oh, but Mr. All the Things, the story isn't about them, it's about Cooper and BT's relationship. To which I'd say, you're right, but that doesn't preclude it from its issues. Dog! The story has this whole thing about the background conflict between the IMC and the militia, and the plot does engage with those elements in the second half with the whole hiring of mercenaries and the missions and stuff. But the thing is, when you establish a larger plot to the context of the character drama, it means you have to have other characters to weigh in on it, so that it doesn't make the world feel small and lifeless. Like, imagine Halo 2, but Chief and Cortana were the only interesting characters in the whole game. You think it would be as compelling? No. You need Arbiter, you need Johnson, you need Truth, you need Tartarus, Miranda, Hood, all of them, because they're the ones that make the world feel alive. And Titanfall 2 doesn't have any of that. It makes the already fairly standard art design that much more bland. It makes the game feel more bland overall. It isn't. Then there's the ending, which was good, but hampered by the fact that they killed BTE 3 times in the story. Kind of takes me out of the investment a bit, though. It was still a dramatic conclusion. Again, the story isn't bad, but it isn't the life-changing, tear-jerking masterpiece I was told. I think it's a shame, really. Now I'll forever remember it as the most overhyped FPS campaign I've played, but I don't want to call it that because it's fun and deserved better from its corporate masters. So maybe instead of trying to sell Titanfall 2 on the basis of story, maybe try and recommend it to your fellow gamer based on its core gameplay loop and its multiplayer. Those are the areas in which it really excels. Enough for me to recommend it. It's good. I like it. Please play it so that EA will stop with this new Apex Legends bullshit and just make fucking Titanfall 3! Anyway, now that that's done, let's see what's next on the wheel. Oh, for fuck's sake!